Hey, welcome back to Inside the Huddle. Joining us in studio is Rick Hoeg, an attorney, small business attorney here in Southeast Michigan. And Rick, it's been a while since we've had you on, and I actually need some help. I'm wondering, what is my contractual obligation to my wife after making a bet with her for this Michigan State game, and if there's any way out of it. I mean, there's not a signed contract. It was just a verbal, we agreed to something here, but I don't want to do it.
Sure. Well, in most cases, you can still enter into an agreement even if it's just a verbal one. There are some rules if they're really big. Did the obligation require more than a year of your effort or time?
No.
Yeah. See, it's going to be hard to get you out of that kind of agreement. So, what did you agree to do for your wife?
I think that's $1 million question here. What did you do?
Well, it was three-pronged, actually. I was a little too confident.
That is confidence.
In Michigan yesterday. The first was that after the game, whoever was the victor, they got to choose what to do with the rest of our Sunday.
So I presume that you already actually met that obligation.
I did.
Okay.
I did. I was hoping my wife was in a frisky mood, and that was going to be what she wanted to do.
Sure.
That was definitely
it never
not.
goes that direction in my experience. Yeah.
No. That would have been what I, as the victor.
Sure.
But that was not the case at all. No, senor! So the first one was she wanted to binge watch a TV show.
Okay. All right.
So I binge watched a TV show.
Okay.
And then it was both make dinner and clean up. I don't mind making dinner. I hate the cleanup.
Okay.
So I already did the first thing.
All right.
The second thing was that I have to fly the Michigan State flag. This is the back and forth we do for every game. Whoever's the victor, their team gets to fly their Michigan State flag out front.
You have a
for the week.
Okay.
For the week. So that went up yesterday.
Okay.
Is there any way legally I could bring this down to 2 or 3 days? I don't have to put it out there for the whole 7 days.
I think the flag has to stay out there. That's pretty passive. I mean, it hurts the ego, but it doesn't actually require you to do anything.
You can blow your nose into it. There's that as well, too.
I have more of a contractual concern with you having these kind of open-ended bets. I think you really need to put some parameters the next time around.
I'm not going to Vegas with you.
For what it means to give your obligations for the entire day. When you said that, I thought, okay, yeah, they're going to sit down and watch the Oscars or something. When you then listed off, you actually have to do whatever they say for the rest of the day, that's a much more hardcore bet than I had assumed.
Yeah, that was bad. And the third prong of it is that I agreed, and I have resisted this every step of the way since we've been together for 3.5 years now. I work out Orange Theory. I go to I do all these different things. I run, I bike, I lift weights.
Sure.
The one thing that she does that I've absolutely refused to join at any time is jazzercise.
Is that a thing still?
It is still
I thought that was an 80s thing.
Yeah, I thought it was for an older crowd than my wife, but my wife loves it. And she tried to get me there on Valentine's Day, and I refused. And I said, I'm never going to jazzercise with you. And she said, well, if Michigan State, if my team wins, then will you agree to come to jazzercise? And if your team wins, then I will never have to go jazzercise ever in my life.
Now, what were the specifics here? If the bet was you have to come to jazzercise, I don't see any reason why you couldn't sit in the back of the room and observe jazzercise.
Okay. This is why I need an attorney.
Yeah.
Because there was never said a participation. I had to come to a jazzercise class with her.
So, I mean, maybe that would be entertaining for you. I mean, you try to get the silver lining out there. So I don't know whether you have to participate or not.
There's no participation?
But I do think you have to work and worry about your language on these things in the future on all prongs.
Yeah.
And maybe Michigan can help you out to not have to worry about so much in future seasons.
Okay, see, this is...
Or 13 days from now. I don't know if you're planning on doing this again in 13 days.
We are. What I think I might need to do is the day of the bet is I should send you the contract and make sure you read it so there's no language in there that holds me to accountable for something I don't want to be held accountable to.
Sure, we can go full British barrister. We can get some parties of the third part, parties of the fourth part, heretofore, therefore. We can get it all legalese if that's what you like. Or we can keep it simple. We can say woolly bully if that's also what you'd like to have in the contract. Sure.
All right. I like it. See, this is the beauty of having a sponsor that's an attorney. That's
what I'm told. Yeah. I can help you with your bets with your wife.
Right. Yep. I needed this 3 days ago.
Well, it sounds like you did. Although again,
you were selfishly on a cruise. You weren't helping me out.
I was also confident in Michigan's victory yesterday, so I don't think I would have looked as askance at the language as you seem to have done, but I also would have believed that you would not be paying out.
Yeah. Did you make any bets?
No, I'm not much of a bettor. The thing you'll find if you hire lawyers regularly, you talk to lawyers regularly, we're a little bit risk averse. And so while we have our vices, for the most part, it's not gambling on the activities of college kids for the most part.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
So I was saddened to see Michigan's loss yesterday. I will say one of the things I did tweet out yesterday is at some point you do tip your cap. I mean, Michigan State. They really played well. Mm-hmm. I personally, and I know there's a kind of difference in philosophical opinion on this, but I personally really hate it when you lose and you're like, oh, God, that team wasn't that good, or something bad happened, or maybe your coach gets thrown out at Penn State. Whatever.
Yeah, right.
Things happen. In that case, I watched that game and I said, Michigan State was just playing better a lot, long periods of time in that game. Isn't
that as a fan, it's really hard to admit that Tom Izzo outcoached your guy, that he was the better coach on the day? Because I feel like there are a couple of things that this fan base, and certainly it hasn't helped that there's obnoxious radio show hosts on WTKA, including myself, or especially myself, that perpetuate some of these. And one of them is that Tom Izzo is like downward trend in his career. Mm-hmm. And yesterday was one of those opportunities where you're like, all right, I got to give this guy credit.
Well, I think you're probably right that we help kind of facilitate that thought process, but I think he's done enough himself to help facilitate that thought process. He seemed to have, if not burned out, been slowly winding down towards a well-earned, in all honesty, retirement. Mm-hmm. And I do think even if that is the slope, you can still have blips. And I think Tom Izzo doesn't bother me as much as losing to some folks, the James Franklins of the world, because I do think Tom Izzo had that in him earlier in his career especially. So it doesn't surprise me if, especially in a rivalry context, that pops out. Mm-hmm. I would have expected that 13 days from now in the home game for Michigan State. I wasn't really expecting that yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, I don't love getting out coached. I don't love losing to Michigan State. I don't mind as much losing to a team that is well prepared and just beats us. That's me personally. I know there's going to be disagreement with that. And some other fans, it doesn't bother me nearly as much as losing to Penn State.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's just a tough one to swallow. I mean, it's always harder against your rivals when they cost you something that matters. Yeah. Ohio State and football cost you a Big Ten East title, a chance to win a Big Ten championship. Now this loss to Michigan State. I mean, and yes, there are other ones. I mean, you could go back and say, well, it was the Penn State game, it was the Iowa game, it was the Wisconsin game. But this one, at this point in the season, when it costs you a chance to, potentially win the Big Ten regular season title, it's just, it's. I wonder as a fan, just how much of a blow that is when it's a rival that pushes you back down and almost sticks your face in the mud a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's probably worse. And I think we as Michigan fans have had to experience that maybe more than others. Fortunately, we get to experience that because we are so close to winning those titles, to winning those divisions, to going to those bowls that we want to go to and really making the mark that we want to make. And other teams don't have to deal with that because, nobody cares about what Rutgers does. And so I do think it's worse to suffer that loss to a rival, but again, it might just be my spirits coming off of that cruise, as you mentioned, in that vacation and being warm for a period of time. I looked at that game and said, man, that's not great. I don't love that we lost that, but let's go in 13 days. And the future really is still before us as a basketball team in a way that it really wasn't after that Ohio State football game. That was the end of the world. You thought you had the entire future before you, and it died. In this case, it's like, wow, that's a setback. We hope everybody can play better, but we have these, I think it's 3 games to end the season. Yeah. We have the Big Ten tournament, and then everybody starts out even when March Madness starts.
Well, and that's such a great point. I mean, this game was not the end of the season.
No.
And, I mean, imagine if there was a scenario where Michigan lost to Ohio State in football and they were back in the Legends and Leaders and they got to play again a week later, and you're like, oh, well, they get a chance to redeem. I mean,
I can imagine Ohio State doesn't win that overtime game the week before we play them in the regular season this last year, and doesn't. Who was that? Was it who dropped that pass in the overtime game in the game before us?
It was Maryland, right?
Was it Maryland?
Yeah.
I had a team in red in my head. I'm like, it wasn't Nebraska. But I can still see that ball passing through his hands. And I don't want to back into a Big Ten championship.
Right, I don't either,
but I wouldn't mind it if that was the alternative. We didn't get a chance to back into that championship. And, maybe that game turns out completely differently if nobody's playing for anything.
Yeah. No, it's very possible. But that is the one beauty of this Michigan State game is here we have for 4 or 5 months we've been talking about, like, my God, how terrible is it that they don't play until February 24th and they play 13 days later. Like, what a crunch time thing. And now what we're saying is that, my wife said to me yesterday, she's like, I've got bragging rights for the next year. And I looked at her and I said, we play in 13 days. And she's just like, really? Like, you're playing 13 days? And I said, yep. So you've got bragging rights for 13 days. And you may, after that, have bragging rights for
they're going to be
a
favored
long time.
There. Absolutely.
But for the time being, get it out in 13 days because you don't know what will happen. So at least there's some value in that as a fan covering this team that, there could be a redemption moment.
You get to right the wrongs. Absolutely.
Yeah. So did you guys, I know that you're a big movie guy.
Yeah.
And did you watch the Academy Awards yesterday? We haven't talked about it all on the show. I didn't watch any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. How do I talk about the Academy Awards without getting into trouble?
You would have liked to see. I know you wouldn't want to see The Last Jedi be up for Best Picture.
Well, that was 2 years ago. I know it seems like it just happened to us yesterday, but that's the notion of trauma that we experienced together, Michael.
God, yeah.
The Last Jedi was 2 years ago. Solo was last year with its solo box office that nobody remembers came out.
Yeah.
But no, I watched the last hour. I tend to not watch the first couple hours, especially I don't think there was a host this year, so it was all just kind of people coming out and saying things.
I was curious how that happened.
One of my favorite movies of last year was Black Panther and was nominated for all these awards, and it actually won the one that I really wanted it to win, which was musical score.
Okay.
I love musical scores in movies, and I really thought the Black Panther score stood out, so I enjoyed that. The problem the Academy has with movies and has had for any number of years now is that the vast bulk of the movies they nominate for almost all these awards have made $300 million collectively between the 10 of them.
Yeah.
And so that was one of those that I tweeted out when the actual nominations came out, which fascinated me, which is you had Black Panther nominated for Best Picture, and it made $1.5 billion. And every other nominee and every other movie nominee in all the other categories made like $500 million total.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I watched it. I can't tell you I've seen all the nominees, but it is what it is. It's people awarding themselves in their own industry, and it's fun to watch for a time.
I forgot that it was on, but I had originally written down like a whole long list of how the Academy Awards could fix their show.
Oh, okay.
If they put up the stats of the actors and actresses nominated,
like the height and weight and their 40 time.
No, more like
if
they listed like say Meryl Streep. If Meryl Streep is up there, they listed like in the sidebar like every time she's been nominated for an Academy Award.
Sure.
And like times that she's won, or maybe like what her gross movie take has been. Or like what's her something
put worth on these people? Sure, why not?
Something like that. If you did a Q&A with the actors as like during the show,
a lot of them are drunk, Michael.
Okay, so
I don't know if you want extra time with them. Did you hear Spike Lee talk after the
I did
awards?
not.
I recommend checking that out.
You know what I would like?
What's
Sorry,
that?
it might be on your list. NFL draft after they draft players. You have like that round table that decides whether it's a good pick or a bad pick.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really seen, it's not like I keep up that much with like what was good. I have no idea what separates a nominee from a winner. I would like to see like a reaction panel.
Well, one of the things I wrote down is if they used fan voting in real time not to determine who wins. Mm-hmm. But if you put it up on the screen next to it, Best Picture or Best Actor, and here are the 5 nominees, and you essentially gave the fans a chance to vote on their phone or whatever. Like there's a website you can go to, and it was just like constantly updating who they think they should win. And then they actually announce the winner, and it's like the last place person on that list because it's the opposite of what the fans really like. But like just
Paddington 2, baby.
Make it a little more interactive.
Nothing wrong with Paddington 2.
Something like that I think would be better. And if they could just take it and condense it into an hour.
Well, that's the thing, right? This is the same thing with State of the Unions or anything else that's a long-form thing that you're going to get on the internet the next day. Is why am I watching this? Why aren't I just watching the 14 results the next day? And I agree with that entirely. So that's really why I only watched the last hour. That's where they put the best actor and best actress and best director and best picture. But yeah, it was fine. They take the time use in their speeches. They give all sorts of messages that are interesting, but it's still fun to watch. I still love movies. I still love going to the movies. I still love stories, and I love applying those stories, whether they're in movies or television shows or even to our favorite sports narratives. But
all right, last thing here with Rick, who is a big time movie guy, and oh, by the way, if you'd like to enter into a contract,
I do law. Yeah,
he does practice law. HoegLaw.com, HoegLaw.com, 734-263-1001. Don't make any bets without signing a contract that Rick approves.
Sure.
That's the key here.
Sure. I probably would have started just at the front end with the don't make any bets.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, but we can certainly look at any kind of contract you want to enter into. I do law. You just have to put up with 10 to 15 minutes of me discussing the problems with The Last Jedi when you call. It's really no problem.
Right. But you could get a preview of the next couple Marvel movies coming out.
Sure. Well, that's exciting. I mean, I think that Avengers Endgame is going to be quite the thing, and I think what I had heard the rumors are is it's going to be more than 3 hours long. They're thinking about putting an intermission in.
For that.
So
at least a bathroom break, right?
I think with Overture, like the old Gone with the Wind days, I think they're talking about potentially if they put an intermission in, can they go full like 4 hours or something? I don't know what this script looks like. I don't think anybody does, but I'm certainly interested to see what they are doing with this movie.
What is the longest movie that you've ever sat through before? I mean, Titanic was like 3.5.
It's got to be Return of the King. I think Return of the King just in theaters was 320.
Okay.
But Return of the King Extended Edition is like 4 something.
I pretty much hit my limit at like 2:30. If a movie's more than 2 hours and 30 minutes, I'm like,
that's where you start to feel it, unless you're really into the movie. Absolutely. That's why Last Jedi is the only Star Wars movie that went over that 2:30 mark, and you feel it.
Yeah. Well, in all fairness, both of us could have walked out of Last Jedi not seeing the ending, and we would have been completely fine with that movie.
I think it would have been improved.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that later.
All right, HoegLaw.com. When we come back, legit or overreaction. Thanks, Rick, for coming in.
Absolutely.
And thanks for bringing his wife in today, too. So you heard her laugh earlier. So that was the contribution.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we come back. True, legit or overreaction is Inside the Huddle on Sports Talk 1050. WTKA Ticket.